So when I began street parking, I didn't really have an idea of the incentives. And then I found out about the 75 hoodie and I was all about it. I just wanted to go, and I actually set a goal for myself to get 100 workouts in 100 days because I had gone from a lifestyle of going back and forth and not being fully consistent. And that 100-day goal was really important to me, and I did crush it. And getting that 75 hoodie was one of my favorite things. But when I was in, I was in. And I did take a little bit more of a break. After that, I didn't go as hard, but my next goal was the 365. And it was a little over a year of being a member of the street parking community. It was probably a year and 2 months that I reached that goal, and it was a complete awesome day. I just remember getting my shirt in the mail, and it was like the biggest happy dance. And so right now I'm sitting at nearly 500, and I'm just so excited to get to that 1,000 mark. My advice to anybody on their way to 75 or 365 is make yourself a goal. I always had a calendar, I always had a whiteboard, I always checked in with the community, and it kept me motivated because every day somebody's posting a picture of their 75 hoodie. Every week somebody's posting a picture of their 365, and all you have to do is lean on the community, make yourself a goal, and just work towards it one day at a time.
Alrighty, here we are. I am excited for today's episode of the Street Parking Coaches Roundtable. What is this, Salvi, episode 9? Dang. We're here today, and we want to talk about, we had a discussion, what should we talk about this week on the Coaches Roundtable? And I think a fun topic that we could literally make episode after episode about is common fitness and nutrition-related myths that annoy us as coaches. I mean, I get slightly angry at some of them, and we chose 6, which we're gonna go through here. We could have chosen so many more, and we had to whittle Jeb's list of like 20 things down to just a few. But yeah, let's dive right into it, and we're gonna talk about everything that we say today is going to be something that you've either heard at some point from a coach, a personal trainer, or more recently on the social medias. These are the ads that are popping up in your Facebook feed or in your Instagram feed or the emails that you're being sent. And honestly, because you're watching this, they're probably about to increase based on the algorithms. And we're going to be talking about all these things, and we're all going to see all of it pop up even more. So I apologize in advance about that. But let's get right into it. The very first one, this was definitely the one that maybe seeing this type of thing is what made me want to make the show about this even more, is spot reducing fat and or training certain body parts to make them look a certain way and focusing, like hyper-focusing on one certain body part. So for example, there are a lot of programs out there, one that's very popular right now, guaranteeing abs in 30 days. If you just do these simple exercises, and it's a lot of crunches, it's a lot of, I don't even know, toes to bar, who knows. What do you guys think about when you see stuff like that, and you see these before and after pictures, and this promise of 30-day abs or 7-minute abs? Abs is definitely a huge target, but it could be any body part, really.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing because the people that create these programs and the people that are the spokespeople of these programs, they know. They know that what they are pumping is BS, but they still try to sell it anyways because they also know that, especially when it comes to abs, that's probably the thing that people want visible the most. And so they prey on that. And I think that's why not only do we just think or know that it's wrong, but like it's very frustrating because we have to work against that. And it's I don't know, predatory. It's unethical. And it's not, I mean, I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but like you can't just target one part of your body that you want to reduce the fat on. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and I think, I've done so many posts about this, and over the last, I don't know, 2 decades, I've had so many people ask me, what do you do for abs? What more can I do for abs? How do I train abs? The street parking members recently, actually, this is another reason why this whole topic today came up, is one of the street parking members had posted in Facebook, what do you wish street parking had more of? And over and over and over again, we saw our own members saying, I wish they had a core program. I wish there was more core work. And I wish I could do more for my core. And I just was like, oh, my head was about to explode. Because again, it's not the people in street parking, it's not these members' fault. It's what they've been fed from Women's Health Magazine to In Shape Magazine to Men's Health Magazine to now, the social media posts that they're seeing of these influencers saying they have an ab program. They think, because they've been sold it over and over again, that's what you need. And I've made multiple posts, and I'm, of course, always super sarcastic. And I'll say, congratulations, you already have abs. They're on your body. You were born with them. And I think what you're trying to say is I want to be able to see them. In order for that to happen, it's going to be a reduction in body fat, which is going to come from not crunches and trying to spot reduce and just somehow magically burn the fat off of your midsection. It's going to come from nutrition. It's going to come from burning enough calories and the whole thing, we could go dive into from there. But these programs, it's just not, like Jeb said, they're predatory and they make me so angry. And the people that are promoting them, they know.
Yeah, it's very short term and it's an easy sell, right? I think one of the easiest ways that you can definitely spot if someone wants just a quick turnaround buck is if they are pitching programs that are on the 30-day cycle, right? One of the hardest things to do is to sell something that's not an easy pitch, right? Which is the reality, the harsh truth that abs are not made in 30 days, right? We are, you have to, I would even say that I would appreciate if some of these people marketed it differently in the sense of just core building, core strength, as opposed to 30-day abs, right? Because that is more in line of what the truth is when you are pitching a program like that. It's not for aesthetics. It's, if you're working on your core for 30 days consistently, you're just going to build a stronger midline, which is then in turn going to help you out with your fitness and just, movement in life, which is good, right? Because all movement comes from the core here, and it's just being able to stabilize. But yeah, if you spot those things, it's a quick turnaround. The people just want to make the quick buck. And from their point of view, sure, whatever. But it just taints your idea of what is successful and what's not. You start wondering, you start doubting all these things. And then, but don't worry, that's because then we're here to let you guys know what the truth is. It's going to be harder, and we're going to be that nagging, aunt or uncle that just continues to tell you, no, this is not how it's done. This is the right way. But it's not the quickest way. It's the consistent way. And that's a hard thing for people to, that's a hard road to take.
We're like the Debbie Downer of fitness, to be honest. It's like, sorry, hate to break it to you, but you're not going to have abs in 30 days if you do that. Or you're not going to, if you follow the 7-minute abs, that's not going to be what gives you visible abs. And people don't want to hear that. They want it to be true. I wish it were true for you. But it's not. Alex, what are the best ways actually to train your core? Because oftentimes the other issue that I have with the ab specific ones, and even some of the like booty building ones and stuff like that, are they kind of come up with these movements that are, it's not that they don't train those body parts, but it's probably not the most effective way to train those body parts. So if you're looking at strengthening your core, what are the movements that we use, and why don't we need a super duper special core program to do that?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's okay to strengthen your abs or to want that. But like Julian said, it's misleading to assume that would lead to visible abs. And I actually have had to deal with this lately because it came up so much in the Facebook group. where I had to explain like your core is made up of much more than just your abs. I think people like to associate it with what they can see or not see. But it's also, you know, your quads, your hip flexors, your glutes, your lower back muscles all comprise of your core. So we like to train movements that are generally multi-joint, where it's connecting your extremities to your core and strengthening those connecting pieces. So we'll train, you know, squats, deadlifts, that kind of stuff, planks, things where, you know, you're getting the full experience and we're not just isolating one part and not reintroducing it to the system and how it works together.
Yeah, the main function of your abs, your six-pack muscles, are to work with all those other muscle groups that Alex mentioned to stabilize your spine, so that when you're squatting, when you're picking something up off the ground, when you're putting your kid up over your head and catching him or whatever, you stabilize your spine, because your spine otherwise is it could just kind of be out there flapping in the wind, and there's a lot of injury that can come from that. So we're stabilizing. That's the main role of your core. So keeping that position stable, crunches and sit-ups like that, they will burn and they will make you sore. It is a very small piece of what that muscle group is actually designed to do. And it's more of like an accessory of what it's designed to do. Its main job is to stabilize. And funny enough, you know, I currently have a visible six-pack, which is, congratulations me, right? Who cares, Miranda? You've had a six-pack for a long time. I have not done a workout with sit-ups or toes to bar in over a year and a half. That's not true. I don't want to lie, be authentic. I did do the sit-ups in the 12 Days of Christmas workout on Christmas Eve. And I've done a few workouts, I want to say like 3 or 4 with alternating V-ups. Other than that, I have not for over a year and a half done a workout with those movements in them. You can see it because I'm lean. I do strengthen them other ways. I do use my core to stabilize in the street parking workouts and the movements that we just mentioned. But again, you guys, don't fall prey to spot reducing fat. That's not how it works. I think in one of the posts I mentioned that I like made a joke about the my ab program, and it's like eating right and doing the workouts and all this stuff, and it said number of weeks that you'll need in order to see your abs visibly depends on your current level of body fat, how consistent you are and how closely you stick to this program, and honestly what your genetic makeup is and where you store fat. Some people store more fat in their arms. Some people store more fat. I store more fat in my lower body and my legs. Some people store more fat in their belly and they can get lean. Their whole body gets lean and the belly's the last place for it to go. So all of those factors will add up into where your body loses fat first, stores fat the most. And so we just control what we can control. And honestly, I know a lot of people who have six-packs who they're not the happiest people or the most satisfied people in life. So I don't think it's something that you necessarily need to chase to think that it's going to improve your life as drastically as you might assume. So that was the first one, the spot reducing fat and the 30-day abs program. Don't waste your money. Just find consistency in the basics. Okay, next one. I like this one. The scale, how much you weigh on the scale, is an accurate or it's a good measure of your health. This was a Jeb. This was one of Jeb's. So Jeb, I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, so really it was like different things like your weight and aesthetics don't necessarily equal health. And again, it kind of comes back to what we are fed. When you go through social media and look at fitness influencers and stuff like that, and like physique competitors, bikini competitors, like when those people step on stage, they are on death's door, right? They're so dehydrated. Their skin is probably getting clogged with a bunch of spray tan and whatnot. It's an aesthetic does not equal health. And in fact, it can go so far just to make certain muscles and veins pop out, that that it's actually unhealthy, and getting below a certain amount of body fat is also unhealthy. So the weight on the scale is kind of another piece of that puzzle. And I know, I mean, to me personally, I think that what the number says on the scale is almost up there with like BMI, where it doesn't matter as much as we think it matters. And a lot of that stuff has been used to measure really large populations of people. Like the BMI is used so that they can have some kind of metric to measure groups of like millions and millions of people. So when it comes to an individual, those numbers don't really mean as much. I, for example, like for some reason am very light. Like even when I have lots of muscle, I think my bones are light or something.
You have weak bones, Chad?
My bones are very strong. I've never broken a bone, and I've gotten banged up a lot, but they're light. I don't know what it is, but whatever. That's kind of beside the point. But your body's makeup, like your bone density, yeah, that has something to do with it. The amount of muscle that you have, the amount of fat that you have, the amount of water that you have in your body, the actually like connective tissues and stuff like that can weigh different things. Like there's so many different factors that can go into what that one number says on the scale. To have that one number somehow tell you how you should feel about yourself is, it's sad. And I don't mean that like if that's where you're going through right now that it's like sad, but I just, again, am frustrated and disappointed in the fitness industry and in a lot of spokespeople within the industry that have perpetuated that, you know, and assigned so much meaning to this number that really doesn't mean as much as it should.
Yeah, and I think so. There's a couple things here with that now, and clothing size can be a huge one too. I think something that a lot of people don't realize, and it's shocking to them when they find this information, is that your weight. One of the ways that it doesn't determine health is you can be a 135, 140 pound woman, which is basically that's the range that I typically live in, and you can be obese. And it's like, what? Wait, what? How is that possible? How can you be 100? Based on the percentage of your body, the amount of that 140 pounds that is fat mass, you can be a size 6 or 8 and have so little bone density and so little muscle mass that you can actually be obese, even though you're small. And so, you know, whether you call that like skinny fat, and this, again, it's not an attack on how you should feel about yourself or whether you're beautiful or anything like that. But we need to stop attaching, like, once you're past this certain weight, you're unhealthy. On the flip side, based on your genetics or how much muscle mass you have or whatever, you know, even your nationality or your race, you might be a little bit heavier and be completely healthy. And the weight on the scale is just because you do have heavier bones. You do carry more muscle mass naturally based on your genetics or because you're an athlete. I know Julian, like his BMI, like he's almost borderline unhealthy on the BMI charts because he's 5'10".
Like 5'9" and a half.
Okay,
I've accepted
okay.
it.
We're
I've
going with
accepted
5'9"
it.
today.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, close to 200 pounds. And so if you just look at those two numbers on the BMI chart, and I'm the same way. I'm a little bit lighter now than when I was like competing, but on the BMI charts, if I go over 140 at 5'5", it shows me creeping up toward the unhealthy weight range for my height. And so what the number on the scale or the size of clothes that you wear, all of that stuff doesn't tell much of the story at all. And also when you're just losing weight, are you losing fat mass? Are you losing lean body mass? Why is that number going down? That's also not the best accurate or the most accurate way to see what's going on when you're trying to improve all of those things.
Yeah, I have found that a scale definitely has a purpose. It would, depending on how you can deal with it psychologically. Because, perfect example, me and Jeb, I weigh, I think, like 194. I stepped on the scale this morning, and I'm 5'9" and a half. What do you weigh?
Roughly the same.
You see, and Jeb's like what, 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah.
You see, so like there's a big difference in height there, but yet we weigh around the same. Our body composition is just completely different. So, you got to be able to find what's a good, healthier number for you. Taking images as well, pics, will probably do a lot more for you. That way you can start seeing the changes, because again, depending on what kind of workouts you're doing, again, if you're cleaning up your eating but also training the right way, you could start building muscle, and then the scale might not tip as much as you want it to, because now it's like counteracting each other. So again, I'm in a place now, and I'll use this example, because of our lack of sleep, and sometimes I feel like I will eat a little bit more carbs than normal, just because I'm like losing the control sometimes, just because it's rough, right? When you don't get sleep, you're not making the greatest decisions. So I know that if I were to step on the scale, if I'm seeing some kind of fluctuation, I know what's going on, because not much else has changed in my life other than the lack of sleep and the extra eating of the carbohydrates. Then I know that I shouldn't be eating. And so again, it just helps bring awareness, but also it takes a lot of emotional maturity to be able to look at those numbers and not let them ruin your day. Just take again, it's just data. If you can look at it and treat it as data, cool. That's it. Move on. But there's a reason why the Biggest Loser contestants are always gaining all that weight back. They are doing it in the most unsafe way. When I was in high school and was in wrestling season, I talk about high school wrestlers. That's something that I just don't think I would ever put Knox through when it comes to, or just weight cutting, right? Because I remember being able to lose 2 to 3 pounds within a 12-hour window by just Jolly Ranchers or gum and spitting into a water bottle and then pissing. And that right there alone will start making you lose weight on the scale. But is that healthy? Absolutely not. So the scale can definitely get to you if you don't have emotional awareness with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of going back to the way that Jeb started this whole thing off. It's not just on the heavier side, but it's also on the lighter side, or even the leaner side, the body fat side. I come from a background where I used to hang out with all sorts of these bodybuilders that were competing. I competed in like the fitness category one time, and he's absolutely right. Like, he's not exaggerating when he said that these guys are on death's door. Like, my friends, they had a hard time tying their shoes, and they were just so exhausted, and they're carrying around all this muscle mass and eating like only the amount to keep the muscle mass on their body and nothing else. And so, I mean, it's impressive 100%. And it's not to say that it's not an impressive sport. I think the discipline that's involved in that whole arena is, I don't know if there's many other sports that have that level of discipline. So it's super impressive, but healthy, because those are the same people that will then turn around and promote their 30-day ab program the day after they do their competition, or the day before they do their competition. And the truth of the matter is a lot of those the bodybuilders and the fitness and the figure people, they don't look like that year round. What they do is they cut down for the show. They do these extreme cuts, or for their photo shoot or whatever, and they pack in as many photo shoots, as many, video shoots, and all of this stuff, all in this like 2-week window where they're really lean. And then they come out of it after the show, because you don't want to walk around and live like that. Now, I will say some people can live healthy, lean. And again, this will be based on genetics. One of the things that actually has been hurtful to me several times in my fitness career is, I think one time when Knox was a baby, there was a comment on my Instagram that said, "Oh, she cares more about the way she looks than she does about her child." And this was when he was still pretty young, only a few months old. And I breastfed Knox until he was 18 months old. We did a bod pod test, and I think I was like 9% body fat while still breastfeeding Knox. That's not normal. And I know that's not normal. I know that I do it in a very healthy, safe way, but I also know that I have genetics to allow that to happen, and not everybody should aspire to do that. Most people, are not going to be able to get that lean and feel good or breastfeed or whatever. So I would never post, "You should aim to do this and look like me." It's always, you should aim to be the best version of yourself and the most healthy version of yourself. Here's the tools for that. So Alex, you're female too, and I think the females struggle with this more than even the guys. But what's your history with like weight and body fat and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm like on the opposite end of the spectrum, Jeb. I since I can remember going to the doctor's office, I've always been considered overweight for my BMI. But I just always like naturally carried a lot of muscle on my frame. And I'm just super grateful that it was never like pushed on me like, oh, you need to lose weight from like my family. I just knew like, I was like, I'm just dense. That's how I'm a thick girl. It's all good. But yeah, it definitely, should we segue into another
Yes, I think it does go nicely into it. What's the next one?
Yeah, so the next myth is that lifting will make women bulky, or what's probably more insulting is when people say that it'll make you look like a man.
Yes, lifting weights will make you bulky. Well, we see this a lot as coaches, and I'm sure you guys have heard this as well. I want to work out, but I don't want to get bulky. And I've heard this since the beginning of my fitness coaching career. So what's your history with that as a coach?
As a coach, I mean, first I had to work through it myself as an athlete. Because even it was saddening at first when I started hearing those things, because even before I was working out, because I was naturally, I mean, if you want to call it bulky, like that's how I carried. And so like when I would hear those things, like, oh, well, shit, like
it's basically someone looking you in the eye and saying, I don't want to look like you. I want to work out, but this is too much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And as a coach, people would say that to my face, and I'd be like apologetic almost, like, no, you don't understand. This is like how I am built. I haven't tried to do any of this. Like, it's always just how I've carried myself. So it was hurtful at first, and then I worked through that, and now it's almost laughable, and I try to help people to see that. Like, I don't think you understand the discipline and the work and the consistency that it requires to build muscle mass to the point that you think you will like happen upon. Like, it's not going to happen by accident. And if you feel like it's happening, like, you can by all means stop it way ahead of, like, you can stop it in its tracks, but it's not likely going to happen. So I almost just like, I try to make it a laughing matter, and like, oh, that's audacious almost, like you probably won't be able to do that, so it's okay.
Yeah, where do you think that comes from, Jeb? Like, do you think this is another one of those, like, I'm just going to try to sell you this separate program and tell you that you're a woman, so you should do this program and it's different? Do you think, because women, I think, again, the aesthetics that we see with these like Hollywood actresses or models or whatever, that they prey on that and think like, oh, well, if I sell it, that you're going to look like this as opposed to this. Where do you think that comes from? Oh, boy.
I mean, this is a real can of worms here. One could argue that since the beginning of civilization, women have been subjugated and kind of been dominated by men. Men have pretty much been in power forever, right? And like high heels and like all these
Yikes.
weird things that are part of the custom for a lot of women. It's like, if you really take a step back and look at that, like even like skirts and dress, like it's the most non-functional stuff ever. And it's like, if you like to wear heels and skirts, awesome, totally cool. I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or should not wear or do or whatever. But for a long time, like, that used to really bother me when people would say, I don't want to look like a man, or she looks like a man. I don't want to get bulky. I want to look feminine. And I would argue with them and like be like, oh really, so you get to decide what femininity looks like what are you talking about? And then honestly, I never could get an inch with any of the arguments that I had with people. They were so dug into this, this concept that they had inside their head. So I just gave up and I was just like, cool, whatever. But it's really frustrating. And the other thing, like to what Alex was saying, like I guarantee you not one person has ever woken up one morning and just been like, good grief, how did I get so bulky? You know what I mean?
Only on the Wonder Woman movies does that happen.
Yeah, unless you're some kind of, superhero and you fell into some radioactive stuff or something, right? It takes a lot of work and effort and honestly, eating, you got to really eat a lot if you want to bulk up. It's something that I've actually struggled with quite a bit because I've tried to get bigger and it's so hard.
Now, it goes back to exactly what Jeb was talking about. It goes back to your genetics and all of the things that we encourage in street parking, the nutrition, the fitness, all of it. It should maximize or at least optimize in some way your genetic potential. So what you are going to look like at your most healthy is going to be different for everybody sitting here, for everybody listening to this. For some people, it's leaner. For some people, it's not as lean because that's not genetically what's most healthy for them. And so, yeah, are there people who genetically gain muscle easier? Absolutely. It still requires a ton of hard work. So just because you naturally have the genes to gain more muscle doesn't mean, again, unless you fall into some radioactive juice, it's not just going to happen without all the hard work and the eating and all of that. There are people who have a harder time gaining muscle like Jeb, and he's going to have to work even harder. But nobody, one thing that we used to say all the time, when I would train people in person was like, if they came in and they were like, I don't want to get bulky. And I'm like, I'd say, okay, no problem. I got just the program for you. Give them the same thing you give everybody else. And then you say, you know what? You let me know if you start getting too bulky and we'll tone it back. Like you just let me know when they're never going to come in. If anything, back when I had my gym and I was still in my 20s, the moms would come in their 30s and they would feel better than ever. They would love showing off, their more visible, triceps and shoulders and things like that. So you just keep on keeping on and let me know. Now, remember, lifting weights is not just for, none of this is just for looking a certain way. Women need to have muscle on their body for health, to be able to live their lives healthily. If we, are over here eating 800 calories and only doing, our Pilates here and there and letting muscle go to the wayside and not maintaining strength, we're going to be in trouble when we get into our 60s, 70s, 80s. Pilates is great, by the way. I'm not knocking Pilates, okay? But when we have so little muscle mass that we can't carry our frames around and our bones are brittle and, we're not protected against osteoporosis as well as we could be. So try not to worry so much just about the aesthetics. I know Julian had something to say, and I wonder if he's going to share the story of when we first started dating.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
But
well, I will after. Jeez.
yeah, I was gonna say that there was I think it was a couple years ago. One of the things that I really appreciated about when I first entered the culture of, at the time, CrossFit, I really appreciated being surrounded by women who were just badass, that were able to push you, that had the confidence in them to just kind of show you what was up. Like that to me was something new and refreshing, because there was no delicacy in there, right? Like, oh, I'm a delicate this and that. Like, I think there's something to be said about a strong, empowered woman. And then when she goes in there and is able to really combine that with her fitness, it's freaking awesome, That's why we're here, why we got married. A couple of years ago, I remember there was a CrossFit Games athlete that is very well known. He tried to create his own.
Oh boy.
He tried to create a program, and the way he marketed it was towards females, and started saying things that they don't want to get bulky, don't want to do this, don't want to do that. This is the program for you. Let me tell you, he had to take it off within 24 hours because he got blasted so quickly by the community that is, folks, CrossFitters and stuff. And I love that because it's like, how bro, like, what are you doing? It was at that point that you start realize that sometimes, these athletes don't, it's like, why don't you just be honest, right? And you can tell who's now taking the approach of hiring somebody to sell their programs for them that don't understand our culture, and I'm glad he got really blasted for that because it was super ridiculous.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, one of the things I think within the CrossFit community, especially between 2010 to 2014, 15, I was pretty well known as being I had short hair and I was very muscular. And you want to talk about people that are just mean. I had some of the most mean, I could read to you comments on my Instagram posts, and people that said I'm disgusting, I look like a man, all this kind of stuff. And the story that I was hoping that you were going to share was that when Julian and I started dating, one of his close friends literally was shocked that he would want to date me because of the way that I looked. Now, I will say that it was a very common occurrence also for me back then to have people, when they met me in person, be shocked at how small I was in person. A lot of the times you see these athletes, and the reason that they look so muscular and so jacked is because the photos were taken in the middle of them working out. And when you see them in person, even the guys, they're much smaller than you think they're going to be. So keep that in mind. But even if they looked like that in person, it's beautiful, it's strong. And I'll tell you what, I love looking muscular because there's at least that barrier where if it's try to kidnap me, do it, I dare you. You know what I mean? It's going to give the kidnapper a little pause to be I'm going to wait for the next person to come out of Target because this just looks like a shit show to me. This is going to be way more work than it's worth. And, so have that confidence, have that strength, and it's beautiful, it's healthy, and it takes a lot of work for you to get as bulky. That's kind of where we started. It takes a very specific type of training. It takes a very specific diet, and it takes a very long time, and you have to be very consistent for you to look the way that these professional athletes look. So I'll give you the same advice that we give, I've been given for years. Lift the weights, have fun with it, enjoy the mental, physical, and emotional benefits of it. And if you feel like you're starting to get a little too bulky, you just let us know. Okay. Ooh, this one's fun. The anti-bulky Detox teas. Now, if our Kardashian sells it, I'm not buying it. No, I'm just kidding. But something that's been popular, I think, for now, I would say 5 years or more, are these flat tummy teas, these detox teas that are promising that if you have a little pooch and you drink the tea, it's just going to go away. No other effort or energy required, no changing of the nutrition, nothing. Just drink the tea. So this was Alex's. She was excited about this one. What do you have to say about the detox teas?
Yeah, it's funny when Julian was telling his story about wrestling and having to drop weight. I was like, dude, you should have just drank a
I wish I would have
detox
known.
tea or
I really
two.
wish I would have known.
I don't think that you do.
I was trying to make weight. I'll do whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's basically a glorified laxative. These companies market it and they use, what are they called? Influencers?
Yes.
Yes. Instagram baddies and in some cases, medical professionals, which is super disheartening to promote these teas. And it's just like any other tea. It's either comes in a bag or it's loose leaf, and you can steep it in hot water. And a lot of times when I've been doing my research, it's a 14 to 28 day protocol, and there's a morning tea and there's a night tea. The morning teas generally have some kind of caffeine, like green tea or something. So that's how they get, to claim that it boosts your energy. But in case you didn't know, caffeine is a diuretic, which means that it helps you to pee more frequently. And then the nighttime tea has, most of them have what are called senna leaves in them, which is a natural laxative. and a rapid one at that. And so basically, you know, it kind of goes back to, okay, sure, you're losing weight, but what weight are you losing? And basically all these teas are doing is dehydrating you, and literally flushing you out. So if you did have, let's say you only had a pooch, you know, little belly, I don't know what those are called. Sure, it might go away, but as soon as you start drinking water or eating or anything like that, that weight gets put right back on. Yeah, and you know, these influencers are just, they are, I think, trying to just make a quick buck, and they're not really, they don't believe in the product, or if they do, they know what it does and still are promoting it to vulnerable minds, insecure bodies. And again, it's just another example of the industry preying on people who are looking to see results.
I was reached out to by specifically the Flat Tummy Tea Co. I think like maybe 5 years ago. And they reached out to me offering to pay me to do like a certain number of posts and a certain number of story posts promoting the Flat Tummy Tea. And this was when this kind of stuff was like pretty newish. I didn't know much about it. It's not something that I had ever even thought about because my tummy was already flat. So there's that, number one. They're reaching out to somebody who doesn't need the product at all. I already looked a certain way and offered me money to promote something that I had never used and had no need for. So there's that. Where this got really dicey and uncomfortable was when I asked, you know, I was trying to make a buck too, you know, so I was like, okay, fine. Can I try some of it? I didn't know that it was like a laxative or anything like that. It's like, if this thing, you know, helps with bloating or whatever, like, I don't have a problem posting that if I feel good and it tastes good and whatever. They refused to send me a trial packet. They were like, we only have packets of 24, we can't, or whatever, 28 days. We can't send you the whole thing. As soon as you sign that you'll post about it, then we'll send it to you. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to post about it if I've never tried it? And they're like, well, we'll send it to you, and when you get the package, you post about it. But this is after I've already signed and agreed that I would post. It became this like back and forth email where I got like really aggressive with these people. I posted the entire email conversation on my Instagram stories. I could not believe it. So just keep that in mind. Anytime you see a product that's a fat burner, or these teas, or any sort of these like supplements or programs even. And as a matter of fact, this morning, one of our street parking members found a picture of me that's 5 years old that was being used to promote a keto recipe book. I've never eaten a keto meal, not on purpose, at least. I've never done keto. I was definitely not doing keto at that time. It was like a couple months after I competed in the CrossFit Games, and they found this photo. They tagged me in it, said that I used it to promote their keto recipes, and were hoping to get people to click on their link. So there are even influencers that are being used, and they don't even know they're being used to sell you guys this stuff. So the teas are really bad, and I know that Jeb has a personal story, as he always does, because Jeb's Mr. Try. He'll try anything once.
Yeah, I'm like my own little guinea pig. Okay, so if you ever, Carolina and I both decided way back in the day that we were going to do the Master Cleanse together. This was fairly early on in our relationship. If you ever want to test your relationship with somebody and see if they're the one, that is the only reason to do the Master Cleanse.
What is the Master Cleanse?
For 10 days, all you eat or drink is basically lemon juice diluted in water with cayenne pepper and a little bit of maple syrup.
I've heard of this, yes.
Yeah, and you do that for 10 days. That's all you drink. We made it 7 days.
That's impressive.
And at night, you drink this senna leaf tea.
Oh, God.
And then in the morning, you do a saltwater flush, where you basically just take a couple tablespoons of salt in water and you chug it. and we lived in an apartment with one bathroom. So yeah, every morning for a week, you wake up and you have like the worst cramps like in your stomach, and you have to poop like worse than you've ever had to poop, right? And then if you do the saltwater flush too, it's like, I mean, it's emergency level. There's no like, we're pacing around the apartment. I'm eyeing the kitchen sink. You know, I'm like, Carolina, like, what's going on in there? And if I was in the bathroom, she was doing the same thing. It was horrible. So the teas, like, if you're looking for something to make you go to the bathroom, they definitely work. I would not say I felt super healthy at all during that time. And here's what happened. On the 7th day, Carolina came home, and I'm like in the apartment, lying on the floor. And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know if I could do this anymore. And she's like, I'm going to go take a shower. And I'm like, there might be a pizza when you get out. And she's like, I'm fine with it. And so the first thing, and what they tell you is like, do not like gradually reintroduce food after this. And so I ordered an extra large pizza from Domino's, and the first thing we ate in a week was that, and we crushed it. And like didn't get sick, but it was not like, I did not get healthy from that. The first thing I ate was a pizza, and then I would eat whatever I could find for the next few days. So
Carolina is on YouTube right now asking that you please make this stop.
Well, just, one of the things when it comes to these detox teas, if you cannot change your eating habits, you're going to be detoxing quite often, or feel like detoxing is the only answer, because ultimately at the end, I guarantee you, if you're a scale person, you're after a detox, I guarantee you're going to look at the scale and be like, oh my gosh, this worked. Look how much weight I lost. Well, yeah, you're like dehydrated. You flushed so much crap out of your body. But then again, look what happened the minute that detox was over. All you're thinking about is immediately introducing food back in your body. And what are you thinking about? The extra large pizza, the meals that put you in the position to make your life miserable for 7 days or 10 days, however long, if you're mentally tough about it, right? I mean, it's just brutal, right? That is, the detox teas are one of the things, they frustrate me so much when somebody brings them, up, because again, if you have those healthy underlying habits and just make gradual changes on the way you eat on a day-to-day, you won't, be fooled by this route of
I mean, Jeb's story is really funny because it's Jeb and we know him and he's here and he's fine. But I've seen like posts and stories of people being hospitalized with some of these teas and things like that. Especially, it's really sad now with social media, these like teenage girls who, this is just another form of an eating disorder. Like, sure, you're not throwing it up, but if you're eating and then you feel like you shouldn't have eaten so much, and so you go the detox tea route, and then you see that you lost weight, so you think it works. It turns into a cycle, and it can really damage your insides. It's obviously psychologically damaging. All of these things that we've talked about, they're preying on your insecurities. They're selling you something that's not real, and it's damaging. None of it's meant to be something that you do consistently through your life. It'll always be something new, whether it's the detox teas or this program or that program or this diet or that cleanse. It's always going to be something where you've been fed all of this stuff and you're just looking for the right answer. And it's really, really, really sad and dangerous and scary.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning too, like, these companies are so clever in how they market and that they call it detox, because really what they've done is created a problem that didn't really exist before. Like we come into contact with toxins through food and, in the air, like pollution and things like that. But our bodies are naturally capable of dealing with these toxins and expelling them. So drinking water and urinating, eating and defecating, when you sneeze, when you sleep, like, your body is constantly purifying itself from toxins. So what these companies are doing is making you think like, hey, toxins are a problem. it's probably what's causing your weight gain or, you know, your bloating or whatever. And here's a product that we've developed to help you with that. We're going to solve your problem for you. When again, it always comes back to like the unsexy things. Drink water, eat a well-balanced diet, exercise, sweat. Like that is what will detoxify you, not a detox tea.
Okay. This last one, I think, confuses people a lot. And this was a Jeb one. This confuses people a lot, especially everybody walking around with their Fitbits and their Whoop watches and their Amazon Halos and their all these things. Things that measure calorie burn. And even going back to when I was on the elliptical trainer and I was like, oh, this is how many calories I burned. Burning calories is not the same thing as burning fat. Oh, actually, we have two more, which kind of coincide together. So let's go. Burning calories is not the same as burning fat. And then we'll go into the last one. So Jeb, why did you like this one? What was it about this?
So I like this one because it's a very common question that I've gotten both in teaching yoga and then in also coaching fitness is people want to know how many calories they're going to burn in a session. And they somehow think that that is going to equate to them losing fat and looking leaner. And again, it doesn't work like that. So calorie is a unit of energy. And it's literally just the amount of energy that it takes to raise like a liter of water by 1 degree. That's all a calorie is. Your fat is stored in cells in your body. And if you want to burn those particular, if you want to basically have the fat come out of that cell and be used as energy, then there's 2 ways that you can do that. And you can work out at a certain level of intensity for a really long time at a low intensity and it's super boring. Or you can do like a high intensity workout, very much like the daily workouts, the street parking workouts. And what that does is that it creates this oxygen debt, right, that you have to pay back. And the way that it gets paid back is that it elevates your metabolism for the rest of the day and part of the next day. So you're actually burning fat for the rest of the day. However, if you look at a 15-minute street parking workout and you look at the number of calories that you burn in that workout, it's like, could be like 200 calories, right? Which is not very much. But if you look at the 24-hour window after that, how many calories would be burned, and if they were burned from fat rather than from carbohydrate, then it's a whole different ballgame. And so I think I probably already went way too deep into the science with it. But it's a little bit more complex than just, oh, there's this one number again that shows up on my watch. And so now I'm going to attach a lot of meaning to this. And then when I still look the same in the mirror and I still feel the same and I still wear the same clothes, but I'm burning all of these calories, what's going on? Well, that's the reason, is because it doesn't translate the way that a lot of people have been told that it does.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned a long time ago, but maybe a lot of people still think this way, is they'll look at the calories burned on their elliptical trainer or on their Fitbit or whatever, and they think that those are the calories that they've burned. The calories that they're burning in exercise is all the calories that they burn throughout the day. Now, literally every time my heart beats or I blink my eyes or I'm trying to process thoughts in my brain, everything your body does requires energy. And so we're using energy, we're burning calories all day long. And depending on what it is you're doing, they might be calories from the food that you just ate, or they might be they might be from your fat stores or whatever. It's so much more complex than looking at the little number on the watch, like Jeb was saying. And that kind of takes us into the last one, which he already kind of mentioned, was this idea of the fat burning zone. And these two kind of really go together. So when I was teaching spinning, which was one of the very first jobs that I had in fitness, it was the 220 minus your age. You want to stay in that 60 to 70% of your max heart rate to burn fat. If you go higher than that, you're not burning fat, no good. You're not going to get leaner. You want to stay in the 60 to 70% range and just do your kind of lower intensity cardio. And so people lived, I don't know if people still do this because I've been out of the like mainstream gym scene for so long. I'm assuming that this is still a thing. Actually, I know it's still a thing because of how certain companies measure fitness on the little watches and things like that. And what's most effective. But like Jeb was saying, that is true. So if you're in that range, that fat burning range, the calories that you're using or the energy that you're using to do that work is going to come from fat. It's aerobic, right? And so you think, well, then why are we doing intensity? Why am I doing 30 unbroken thrusters today, for crying out loud? Because my heart rate was through the roof. Like, shouldn't I just sit on the bike and the recumbent bike and just kind of go? Yes and no. As soon as you get off the elliptical machine at 60 to 70% or off the recumbent bike or stop doing your walk, your body goes back to a normal heart rate, a normal metabolism very, very quickly. Where if you are hitting a higher intensity, the metabolism is going to be burning much higher for the rest of the day to help you recover, to help rebuild muscle from the weights that you were using, all of that stuff. So you're burning more fat for the other 23 and a half hours than you would have otherwise. So where you want to focus is, do I care how much fat I burn in the window, or do I care how much fat I burn all day long every day? And you're going to get your biggest bang from your buck from adding in some intensity. And that doesn't need to be every time you work out, but adding in some intensity so that you can rev up the burn for much longer than just the little window where you're actually exercising. And other ways you can do this is add some more muscle mass to your body. You're going to be burning more calories throughout the day. Even when you're just sitting down, scrolling Instagram, you're burning more calories than if you had less muscle on your body. Lots of different options, but the fat burning zone, it is real, but it's being sold as that you have to exercise that way to burn fat in general, and that's just not the case. The other thing that I'll say about heart rate, because I do think that there's a big emphasis on it now with all the watches and things like that, you have to be careful with heart rate. I want you guys all to just close your eyes and imagine that you're standing in front of 10,000 people and you have to give a speech about anything. Literally, you're going to give a speech about how you feel about homeschooling your kids, positive or negative, pros and cons, but there's 10,000 people and they want to learn from you. Your heart rate probably just spiked up, picturing yourself having to talk to 10,000 people about a subject that people are definitely going to disagree about, right? Just because your heart rate is elevated does not mean that you're working at a certain level. Your heart rate will be elevated if you're not getting enough sleep. Your heart rate is going to be elevated if you're hungover. Your heart rate is going to be elevated if you're nervous. Your heart rate is going to be elevated if you're dehydrated. So many things can impact heart rate that have nothing to do with how much work you're actually accomplishing and how effective your exercise is. So the more trained you are, the more fit you are, the higher heart rate you can maintain. And it's actually more aerobic for you at that point. So there's so much that goes into it. The 220 minus your age thing is about as accurate as BMI in that case, because a lot of it comes down to how well trained you are and everything. So I do think there's utility in it, similar to weighing yourself on the scale, but you should not attach the effectiveness of your workout to what your heart rate was only, because it's a piece of it. It's not a full picture of it.
Nice. I mean, we've kind of gone pretty long on this episode. We'll answer a couple questions. I know Nicole's probably got a lot of good ones since these are all myths that we're debunking. But hit us with a couple questions, and then we're going to wrap this up for today.
Right. We have a question from a couple of people asking about intermittent fasting. They hear so many people talking about it, but don't see the benefit. Any thoughts?
I'm going to keep this very short because we are, like Julian said, at an hour, and this is a whole other, it's not a myth. Intermittent fasting will control the number of calories that you consume in a day because you can only stuff so much in your face in a short window. There are other benefits to fasting for sure, which I'm not going to get into. But in general, if someone is losing weight because they're doing intermittent fasting, it's because they're eating less than they were eating before.
Yeah, you just have to be able to acknowledge like what stage in that. It's a good tool to have depending on where you're at. Again, most people just have to eat better, and your body does deserve a break from eating, because I think that a lot of these books on fasting will just talk about how you need to take a break from eating. We're constantly eating throughout the day, whether it be snacking or munching on things, whatever. Your body does need a window, and I think what she said, what I'm trying to tell you guys here, fix your eating first, as opposed to going all in 0 to 100 on intermittent fasting. But again, that's not to say that once you have an understanding why people use it, it does have its benefits.
But it's not necessary. It has
Correct.
benefits, but it's not necessary for you to just live a healthy life.
Think about what's sustainable.
Yes.
I think across the board, people want to hear about some of the things. I know we heard that Jeb has fallen victim to some of these things, but what about you guys? Have you ever done one of these myths or bought a random piece of quick fix equipment or?
I've never gotten sold any crazy equipment so much. I mean, I definitely started. So when I started working in fitness, it was like still in the 90s. And I definitely, was real hardcore into the fat burning zone, especially when I was still more in like the bodybuilding stage, and I was trying to get as lean as possible while maintaining the muscle mass. And so I was doing like an hour of low intensity cardio, fasted cardio. That's one thing that almost made the list. Maybe next time we'll talk about the fasted cardio. I know detox teas, but back then, again, supplements were like a huge part of the bodybuilding Globo Gym industry. So definitely some fat burners with like, what did they used to have in them, Jeb? I ask you because you're also old. The ephedra. I mean, I popped some ephedra, the red line drinks and stuff like that. Like, oh my God, if I drank one of those red line drinks now, I think my heart would explode. And for sure, if I tried to do one of the street parking workouts, that's a really bad call. So definitely some of those kinds of like late 90s, early 2000s Globo Gym. I mean, all of that stuff for sure.
One of the things you guys have to keep in mind is just all of the things that we talk about here takes effort. And effort is exhausting, to be honest, with everything that we have in our day-to-day. It wasn't long ago where and we have a video on it, I cleaned up my eating. I dialed it in. I was very seeing how much I was consuming. I wanted to see what my body fat can get to. I was reading these books on fasting, everything, right? And I wanted to see the effects of that. But the amount of discipline and awareness, food was constantly on my mind, and I didn't want to have it around me. You got to think about all those things that it starts affecting. When you can get to a point where you can just be and live your day-to-day with very minimal effort, that's where you've found something that's long-term sustainable, right? Me and Miranda, we eat our meals around the same time usually. We eat very similar foods. She eats her snacks. We eat our hands full of chips. But we have our routine, and it's great, right? We don't have to worry about tipping the scale too much. I mean, except me recently with my sleep and my extra croissant here or there. But again, just realize that these things are going to take a lot of effort, and it can get really exhausting, and then it can lead to a burnout and then resentment and wondering, why isn't this working? It's gradual changes that are going to work in the long term, stuff that we always preach about. It's not sexy, it's not appealing, but it's the truth, and that's what it is.
What about you, Alex?
No, I'm super boring. I think I just entered the fitness space
So level-headed.
at a good time. Yeah. And I've always been like super skeptical of pretty much anything that's promoted to me. So I think that's served me really well. And I also entered the fitness space. I was surrounded by really genuinely authentic, no nonsense people. I like to surround myself with those kinds of people. And so, I either was, the bull crap was they tried to sell it to me, but I wouldn't pick it up, which is, I'm super grateful that I was positively influenced by the people around me, to not give in and not fall into those traps.
Any advice for people trying not to go all or nothing? We have a couple of questions with diet and how to incorporate healthy without putting up that strict wall of, okay, I'm going from eating all bad to all good.
Yeah, literally write a schedule of what you're allowed to do and what you're not. I mean, if you have been working out 0 times, do not allow yourself to work out more than 3 times in a week. And that sounds like really bad advice, maybe, or really contradictory to what you would hear from most coaches. But it's like, and I actually had a conversation not too long ago with one of my brothers who wanted me to give him workouts. And I said to him, first of all, streetparking.com, but also I said to him, I need you to go for a walk 3 times a week for 30 minutes for 2 weeks. You text me back when you have done that, and then I will give you workouts. I never heard back from him. He wanted the give me all of it right now. If you can't go for a walk 3 times a week for 30 minutes and just cut it there, then I know that no matter what I give you, you're not going to be consistent with it. You're going to get super sore. You're going to be gung-ho for a little bit. And so, and I've done this with rehab, with injury rehab, where I'm like, I am only allowed to use the empty barbell this week. I don't care how good I feel. I don't care how easy it is. That is it. And next week I can use 5 pounds more. And the week after I can use 5. And I have to physically write it out and see it on a schedule. So it's exactly what we just did with the Control Your Fitness Challenge. Like, a lot of our members looked at it and they were like, this is too easy. And then somehow only 25% of them completed it. It's like, well, hold on. If it was so easy, why didn't we get 100% compliance? There was the one little area that they struggled, or the one thing, or something came up. Well, of course something came up. This is life. This is not a 6-week and done thing. Like, let's teach you how to maintain these things forever. So if you're at 0, make small steps. Don't try to jump and hurdle everything and do all of it at once. Not even all of it with what we promote,
Yeah, I'm looking at this list here of the Control Your Fitness Challenge task overview, and like I said, the drop-off rate was pretty huge, right? And I think it rocked a lot of people. But this sheet right here, this is an ongoing thing. Honestly, this is what you guys should be aiming to achieve on a regular basis, right? And you should look at this list and be able to cross off things that you're doing great at, that you've kind of got dialed in, and be able to recognize where your weaknesses are, and this will keep you occupied for a long, long time. And once you've got this done and dialed in, then we can have more in-depth conversations.
And if you're wondering what's on the list, last week's Coaches Roundtable, we went through the whole thing. So you can if this is your first time watching one of these episodes, the one that we did last week goes through each one of those things. And what you will find is there's one that you are going to look at and you're going to be like, I'm not doing that one. That's the one you should do first. That's your first step, because it's the one that you don't want to do. It's the one that you're missing. People think they can out-exercise a bad diet, or people think they can diet their way to so much that it's not going to matter that they don't sleep and they're not, doing all these other things. Everything in there was so intentional and so important. Nothing was like this is not that important, but we're just going to throw it in because we're trying to be hard ass like coaches at all. All of it was important, equally important. And so find the one that you tend to push back against the most and start with that.
All right. And that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Coaches Roundtable. If you found some information that you guys liked on here, don't forget to share this video and like and subscribe to the Street Parking YouTube channel. We love putting up all this content up for you guys. We'll catch you guys in 2 weeks, but also this Friday for the next vault workout.
This vault workout, I think, is going to be a fan favorite. And Jeb and Alex are going to be doing it together, and I cannot wait.